Thank you for staying with Citizen TV. It's time for Opinion Court. You could tweet us at Citizen TV Kenya or at Citizen TV News. You could use the respective Facebook pages. And of course, please do text us. 22422 is our SMS line. Let me introduce to you my panel this evening. I'll begin with the honorable members of parliament from the Jubilee Coalition. Kimani Waishungwa to my immediate right, and across from me, Ken Obura. I thank you both for coming, and of course our resident political analyst, Professor Edward Kisiangani. Tonight we're discussing political intolerance, gentlemen, and just as a preamble, it's important to note that Migori is just one case. This has been happening across the political divide, in fact, even within parties themselves. I want to start with Professor tonight and ask this. The Secretary General of ODM, Professor Anyang' Nyong'o, actually issued a statement after the melee took place, regretting the incident. Would it have been any different if Raila Odinga himself, as the CORD leader, came out and decried this particular incident, or do you think this is enough?
I am looking at the personality involved in the Migori incident. You expect that Raila Odinga, as the head of the movement, the CORD movement, would come out quickly and apologize on behalf of, because that is the area that he has a lot of support, and even condemn what happened. You can never apologize enough, but he needed to come out and say, as a leader of that movement, he was not responsible for it, and he regrets that it happened in his backyard. I think it would have made a difference, because we don't know what he thinks.
So
and
4 days later,
we don't even know whether he's the one who authorized Anyang' Nyong'o to say what he said.
Fair enough. So 4 days later, he's not issuing a statement, or let me say any of the CORD luminaries, if you like, not issuing a statement. What then does that infer?
It infers that probably there are sections of the CORD coalition, probably including himself, who think that the president deserves what he went through. And the reason why they are thinking like that is because they are controlled probably by history, that it happened to some people, therefore it is right to happen to the president. So probably they are not unhappy that that incident took place. That is why Anyang' Nyong'o's apology could have been a public relations exercise.
All right, and let me just put the history perhaps you're talking about in context. February 2013, when Raila Odinga perhaps was touring parts of, Meru, and then of course there was a Nyeri incident where he was denied service.
Yeah, he was denied service. And there has been zoning of many places in this country. We know that in some places Raila has not been treated very well. Even the Deputy President William Ruto in 2007, with a team of ODM MPs, he was actually attacked in Kisii. And probably that is the reason why Raila Odinga is not coming out to say, yes, it is wrong. The point that I think we need to look at is this. Whether it happened to the president or Raila Odinga, it's wrong. That is the point. And therefore, that is the reason why Raila Odinga should have come as the head of the movement to say he does not support it, even if it has happened to him and it has happened to the president.
Fair enough. Let me bring Kimani. Why are you insistent that the CORD cream leadership must apologize for this? What difference does it make?
Well, let me say the CORD leadership. Not necessarily the CORD leadership, the ODM leadership.
Okay.
For me, first of all, it didn't matter whether it was Anyang' Nyong'o or the Honorable former Prime Minister who apologized, because an apology was done. But the way the apology was done, by way of just a press statement released to the press, we do not know who had even signed that press statement, whether it was just issued by a secretary in the name of one Professor Anyang' Nyong'o, or it had the sanction of the former Prime Minister, who is leader of that party.
Several CORD MPs took to the floor of the House this week to apologize as well.
Let me say it's all different when the youths in Migori chant in the name of ODM, and the very top leadership of that party remains quiet for a week. And for me, and I said it earlier in the week, this was a script similar to the script that was there in Kasarani in the botched ODM elections. And immediately after the elections, you remember what they said. And it's the same thing, same script, just different players. The players in Kasarani were men in black, The players in Migori were men with some tattered shoes. The players are different, but the script remains the same.
All right, Ken, what do you think of what you've heard?
Thank you. I think, just like he said, Raila Odinga is the head of CORD movement. But remember, what happened in Migori, of course, very unfortunate, had nothing to do with CORD. These were just youths who were heckling, and I don't know why you would want to drag the name of Raila Odinga, because Raila is not ahead of some heckling movement. He's ahead of a serious movement.
Let me
the biggest movement. Professor, let me just finish.
I want to remind you as you finish.
Yes.
By cocking your memory, because it is betraying you. You know, the people you're calling hecklers were singing ODM.
I am
so
coming to that.
That commits the party, and it must, it has a right to say.
I'm coming to that. Yes. I'm coming to that, Professor. Just hold on.
Yeah.
So I think for Ichung'wah to say that this was similar to what happened at Kasarani, one means that Ichung'wah should help the police with investigations, because this matter is before the police, and the police is handling it, is doing investigations. And
you know something we don't know.
Yes, definitely. And I think from the way he's talking, definitely now that we have a new NIS Director General, he will help with that information. But I also wanted to point out that if, and of course it is true that these youths were chanting ODM, the official spokesperson of ODM as a party is the Secretary General, and he has spoken. So the mere fact that this thing happened in Migori, which is a stronghold, not really a backyard, right? Like comes from Siaya County, unless you know that coast is also our stronghold. Unless that, if anything happens to the president at the coast, then I mean Raila should also, apologize. What happened, Anne, is quite unfortunate, and I'm happy that the local leadership has actually apologized. We continue condemning it, and we want to insist on asking our youths to keep off politicians who would like to use them for whatever reasons. But to squarely put the blame on one leader just because Kimani Ichung'wah does not like the face of somebody, I think is unfair.
All right, I want to, Kimani, please hold. I want us to progress from this, and just a very quick response, perhaps actually from you, Ken. What did you think of the president's response to that entire incident?
That was nice. That was beautiful. I love the way the president was calm. He tried to handle it. He tried to calm down the youths. And in fact, you realize that the president was actually welcomed warmly at Awendo, Uriri, Rongo. And so what happened in Migori is just an isolated case. And those are criminals.
Yeah, you talked about local politics. I know sections, at least of ODM, have blamed it on local politics. Kimani, what do you think of that explanation?
Let me say, to blame local politics is hypocrisy. And I did tell my friend Ken Obura the other day, you cannot blame local politics and politics between certain leaders in Migori County and their governor, because we said they are with Governor Obado every other day in Migori. If it is about border operators who probably wanted to picket against something that they were protesting against, they have every other day, not on the day that was appointed when the president was there. And I said the script is the same as was in Kasarani, because it was well choreographed to embarrass the president. And in my thinking, and this is my opinion, probably they expected that something worse would happen. They never expected the president to behave and the security machinery to behave in the way they behaved. Anyway, they exercised a lot of restraint, and probably what they were looking for is probably what happened in the early 60s in Kisumu. It's just fortunate that the Jubilee government is very tolerant. We have got security systems. We have got a security system in this country, again, that has become very professional, and they conducted themselves very well.
And that's why I argued that Raila Odinga should have apologized. If Raila Odinga had apologized as an individual, I think he would have won the hearts of so many Kenyans. But the fact that the president was calm enough under the circumstances, not even to direct his security men to hurt anybody, the president has walked away with a huge chunk of Raila's support across the country. I mean, I'm making you. One day you will ask me that I was right. Because
which day is this?
Because maybe even when you see a lot of people from Nyanza themselves saying, leaders saying that it was wrong, and we know that Raila still has presidential ambitions. If the intention as Member of Parliament Ichung'wah is saying was to embarrass the president, it has turned out the president has walked away with a huge chunk of the court support, and you will see it very soon.
I want to
you can ignore
strongly.
It because don't wait, my brother. You have this tendency to dismiss things that are scientifically reasoned out. And you always do that. And when you are caught up, you must respect people who have good education when they tell you.
Oh my, okay.
Yes, so
all right, okay. So let's give Ken a chance to respond to what you've said.
Thank you. I want to confirm here that I've not had any discourse with the professor, so I think he must be mistaking me for some.
No, I don't.
One of his students who may have probably alleged that he was teaching with the yellow notes. Yes. You know those yellow notes of the 1980s. But I want to say this, Anne. To allege that that this was meant to embarrass and in fact provoke the presidential security, I think is wrong. There is a failure in a lot of parts. One, the National Intelligence Service of this country. There's no way somebody can organize such a serious stuff to embarrass the president or to provoke the insecurity like he's saying, like Ishungwa.
So you agree
like Ishungwa
says,
and of course is backed heavily by Professor. And then the intelligence failed to pick it up. So one, there was serious failure on the side of the national intelligence, which is...
If in fact it was plotted.
Yes.
Okay.
But again...
So are you saying it was spontaneous?
Again,
I don't know what happened.
I don't know what happened. I want to leave it squarely to the police who are still investigating this matter.
All right.
But I think let's not go far to the 1960s to just, try to reason out. According to him, he believes it's scientific, this reasoning about Migori youths and the heckling. Let's not rush to conclusions. Let's wait and see what the police will do.
I think,
and in any case, let me just finish. What Kimani does not know, which he really needs to know, is that the president of this country is the president of everybody. The fact that Kimani and others voted for him or helped in other ways to have him, at State House does not make him a president of Jubilee. So when he's embarrassed, the whole nation, we're also embarrassed. It's not about you guys. Don't trivialize this matter.
Ken, please, I have to progress this conversation, and I want to talk about young people because you spoke specifically of Migori youth. Why is it that, Prof, a section of our population, and particularly young people, after everything that they've witnessed, at least this generation with the 2 elections ago, the melee that was there, that they would still be willing to be used and abused by politicians? What is it?
One of them is poverty, and because somebody could pick some little coins from that kind of arrangement. Another one is simply political indoctrination, where people are told to believe in only one line of argument, one political approach to things. And that does not just affect Migori alone. It affects several parts of the country. Then and it's accompanied by this culture of zoning places, so that you really don't want some places to be frequented by anybody else. You can't forget the thing when Senator Kiraitu Murungi in 2012. Just before he moved from the bus to TNA, supporting TNA, he one time was quoted to have told people that Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta, if he wants to enter Meru, he must use the bus, APK. You remember that? And then, so he was zoning the area and locking the current president out of that area.
Just to support this point, to support this point,
yes.
You see the president also, you see what happened at Gatundu South during the by-elections. Today, the most disenfranchised voter is the voter from Gatundu South. They really did not have a chance to express their opinion on who become a member of parliament because of zoning.
It doesn't help if we talk over each other. Let him finish his point, you will respond. Ken?
Yes. So as I was saying before that look at what happened in Gatundu South. There is the zoning that it is TNA. So that the person who was meant to beat the TNA candidate is intimidated and asked to step down, probably in hope of getting other favors. And apart from that, this political intolerance is wide, is larger. Look at what the president did last week, going to Kericho just because the governors are supporting, referendum, to ask the Jubilee governors to toe the line, trying to intimidate the government.
There must be a difference between actually hurling projectiles at an individual and telling party members to toe the party line, surely. Kimani, your response?
And I think really Ken is just trying to cleverly run away from the issue at hand, because the issue at hand is the intolerance that we have seen within ODM as a party. And also
No, we are discussing
intolerance,
political intolerance in general, not ODM.
intolerance also without the parties, because when you're intolerant with people who you do not believe in the same political position with visiting your area, I think it's imperative for Kenyans to note that one of the key campaign managers of the CORD coalition in the last elections did tweet after the Migori incident and tweeted something to say that there's only one gate or one door into Nyanza, and that door is through Raila Amolo Odinga.
You can see why I was suggesting he needs to, quickly see the police.
It is those kind of insinuations, because I do not need to report to the police what is on Twitter, which is accessible to every other Kenyan. And it is those sort of insinuations that makes Kenyans believe that indeed the top hierarchy in ODM knew what was going to happen in Migori. It was planned. It was planned to happen that way. They expected a different result. Because it's the same thing they had planned prior to the Sabasaba rallies until it was preempted.
My position is this, Anne. For us to inject some fertility in this argument, I think we agree that the Migori incident was wrong, and it threatened the president, and we don't feel very good about it. It also undermined our integrity as a nation. But we are looking at a problem that is widespread.
Yes.
This is my position, that it has happened elsewhere, probably with the lesser impact than what we are witnessing. But even in some cases, people have died. In 1990, on August 14th, Bishop Alexander Muge was told, you should not, by the former Minister for Labour, Peter Okondo, that you should not step in Busia. If you step in Busia, you will not live alive. And indeed, when Bishop went there, on his way back to Eldoret, he died in a mysterious road accident around Kipkaren. And because Muge was a critic of Khan those days, nobody seems to know what happened, although information came in that probably the state was involved because they thought that he was too much. Now, these things have been happening everywhere. We cannot support them. So our idea is we need to come out with a solution to this national crisis where people, without care about section Article 38 and 39 of the Constitution, that it talks about our freedom of political association and so on, we are violating the Constitution, the new Constitution, which is barely 5 years, and zoning our own areas. This is what is likely to result in more Migoris elsewhere.
And I want to come
want
to come to the solutions shortly, Prof, but I want to go back to an initial point that you had made where you blamed this partly on indoctrination and poverty. I want to come to you and ask you this. And I do so with caution because so many Kenyans are facing hard economic times beyond what I think many seated on this panel could actually appreciate. But is poverty in itself an excuse for what we continue to see with young people agreeing to be used by politicians?
Poverty is not just the only problem. There are a lot of issues. And I think when we talk about political intolerance, we must look at the leadership and the masses. Today, for example, I would say that the Kenyan masses are really tolerant. Okay? But among the things that bring up, of course add up to the issues that end up into this intolerance is, for example, equity, tribalism, the sharing of the national cake. Today, for example, I was just watching news here. It's very shameful. The president is just witnessing the swearing in of his tribesmate today at State House.
That's Parliament and you are part of that meeting.
Let me just finish. And witnessed by, Kenywa, and General Karangi is there, and the Chungwa is clapping.
And you were on the vetting panel.
Let's talk about the tyranny of numbers.
You were on that vetting
panel.
Did you register or refuse to sign on that final report?
He did not.
He signed.
But let me tell you, that aside, Anne, I would wish that they use their numbers well to help the country enjoy equitable distribution of resources, tranquility, harmony, peace. So, because when there's development everywhere in equal measure, I think some of these issues will not arise. And more so if the youth are also provided with opportunities.
You would then perhaps agree that to a statement that would go as follows: the Jubilee government has not done enough to work on national cohesion and integration.
It has not just done enough. It has failed to do enough. Because especially on the youth. The ambassadors who are appointed by the president, who are nominated and then, of course, vetted and approved by the parliament, the average age is 60.
But when you
some of them were graduating in 1961, before the president was born, and they were just being appointed. And Kimani Ichung'wah, who is young, who was only 4 years ahead of me in campus, is supporting that. No. So the youth are feeling it is
I don't want us to miss the point.
Yes.
And again, the obvious disclaimer to your views is that you are actually, in fact, part of that panel.
Yes.
And I'll leave it as that.
Yes.
Kimani, your rejoinder, and then we'll come to Prof.
Let me say, Ken has mentioned something to do with inequity. And I think that is one of the key issues they have spoken about in their referendum quest in that Ukora Kenya campaign. And it's only fair to mention,
maybe I just didn't hear
to mention that the ambassadors that were vetted yesterday, Ken Obura sat in the committee that vetted those ambassadors.
I think I've made that point.
Yes, and they are approved by Parliament. And those are some of the benefits that we are enjoying from this new constitution. You will remember that before this government came into place and before the new constitution in 2010, we had a grand coalition government. A grand coalition government where their party leader in ODM had the opportunity to nominate and appoint ambassadors. And some of the people he appointed were his own sister, his own cousin, and other relatives to serve in ambassador positions.
How will he explain that the president also nominated his sister?
Let's give another panelist a chance to speak.
Yes. The iniquities we are talking about are iniquities that have been sorted out by this constitution. One, that the president now cannot nominate even Major Kameru to serve as NIS director without the requisite approval by Parliament, where both Jubilee and CORD members of Parliament sit in the committee and also in the National Assembly to approve that nomination. The other thing on iniquity, and I think this is what is most important to leaders like Ken Obura, people who have been using even their CDF allocations to mobilize Kenyans to collect signatures for their Ukora Kenya campaign, instead of utilizing their CDF money to bring about development in their constituencies.
That's a serious allegation. How can CDF money be used in mobilizing signatures? Where
CDF and all the other county allocations will remove the iniquities
Kimani,
that have been
because
there.
I'm afraid that we may be losing the point. Let me put the question to you as this. What would you say the Jubilee government has done to promote national cohesion and integration?
Nothing.
Let me say the government has been very keen on this. And you remember last year when they started talking about
tell us equity in the cabinet.
Please Ken, let him respond.
Yes.
When they started talking about the national dialogue thing, the president himself was the first person to say that indeed he had started that process 5 months prior to the call for dialogue. And that call, what the president was planning to do and which he had to put on hold was to have a national convention for Kenyans to come together, not just political parties, but all Kenyans to come together and discuss how we will bring this nation together. The other thing the government has been very keen on, we continue to push, is the continued politicization of every other thing and putting this nation in a very divisive electioneering mood, which has been largely been perpetuated by the CORD coalition.
Prof, what do you think of those explanations? And of course, let's say there's the appointment of Francis Ole Kaparo today as NCIC chair.
You see, I have spoken on this show before and said that really the Jubilee government has not done enough to bring national cohesion. But my approach is slightly different from what Honorable Ichung'wah is taking, or even Honorable Ken Obura. You see, we have an institution of Parliament, and this constitution gave a lot of power to Parliament, and Parliament vets proposals by the President. I watched the proceedings in the House the whole afternoon. Some of the people who supported these appointments came from the CORD coalition, and they spoke with a lot of nostalgia about certain people. Now, this is the hypocrisy you find with this Parliament. I am expecting that my friend Ken Obura would walk to the courts tomorrow, and the court sections of the Constitution that talk about ethnic balancing in the way appointments should be made, to get an interpretation from the court. If you do that, we shall respect you. But if you are not going to do that, but you use national television to start saying the president is swearing in his own people, as if the president collected them from his village and then started swearing them in without passing through parliament in which you serve. You are ridiculing the institution of parliament, and that is not correct. You have a duty to change that, and that is what I'm saying. If we do that, and national institutions can do that, and they do play their role, we are going to go somewhere. But we cannot do it otherwise. We must...
I want a final question to you all, and I want to start with you, Ken, and perhaps you could incorporate your views as you respond to this final question. You've already said that you don't believe this government is doing enough. I think Professor has echoed your sentiments in as far as cohesion and integration. Please tell us briefly what you believe your role is in promoting cohesion and integration. You're a member of parliament, and what specifically you would want to see the Jubilee government do.
Thank you. First of all, the question that you asked that Ichungwa was unable to answer, either he did not understand the question or he understood, but
Please
because
just go to your
for
point.
a lack of, you know, a favorable answer to his
because we're out
side
of time,
the
sir. To your thoughts.
Yes.
To your thoughts.
I think this is a no-brainer, and everything here is obvious. Jubilee has the numbers, and I think Prof must get this. In Parliament tomorrow, if the president decides to appoint 10 people from one tribe and he brings them to Parliament, and with the tyranny of Jubilee numbers in Parliament, it will pass. It's a no-brainer.
What's your
role? It is easy.
What's your role?
It's straightforward. It's simple. You only need the skull to understand this. So my role as an MP, as a member of Parliament, is that we can only, in fact, in view of this tyranny of numbers, there's just so much we can do. And this is why we are taking this directly to the people through referendum. Because up here, the Shungwas have insisted on having their way, whether or not it is good for the country, they don't care.
Kimani, your role and government's role.
Let me say my role as a member of parliament, and that's the question my colleague does not want to dwell on because they are not serious.
Please, to your point, sir, we're out of time.
My role as a member of parliament, one, is to ensure every other government appointment that is made, be it a Kikuyu, be it a Luo, be it a Luya, that person has been nominated and appointed to the respective position on merit, not on the basis of their ethnic background. Two, the government's role is also to ensure that there is equitable and fair distribution of resources, and to ensure that government services are rendered across the country fairly and equitably, irrespective of where you come from and who you voted for. And I think the Jubilee government has been very particular on that. None other than the president and the deputy president have been very particular. And the fact that the president was in Migori County, a county that probably gave him less than 0.5% of the votes in the last election, to commission a 7 billion shillings anti-malaria campaign, tells it all, that this government is more than committed in ensuring that there is equitable distribution of resources across the country.
I'm going to ask it again just for the purpose of recentering it again, because I do believe both MPs may have lost it a little bit.
I quickly want to say, for correction of an error, I don't usually yell on notes, and my students are even...
Oh my gosh.
But I want now to
integration.
Go back, I want to go to the question of integration. I think this constitutional dispensation in which we are now envisages a diversity of views. We can differ, but we must tolerate each other. We must also ask the people that threw stones to apologize to the president, and they should not do that to any other leader in this country. And they must never do it. We must tolerate each other, but still be big enough to sit together and eat on a table of friendship.
I thank you all for your views tonight. We'll be back on Opinion Court next week, but now let's catch up with some of the stories making headlines. The Independent Policing Oversight Authority insists it has incriminating evidence against a police officer accused of killing a suspect and whose arrest provoked disruption of traffic on the Thika Superhighway. IPOA says it will not bow to pressure by Githurai residents to release Titus Musila alias Katitu, who is accused of killing Kenneth Kimani Mwangi last year. Michael Njenga has that story.